1935, and Germany is rearming. This is in clear violation of the Treaty of Versailles. They chose to do this because Britain and France were desperate for peace, especially among their people, who after the horror of World War I wanted to prevent all future war and believed that keeping the peace with Germany by appeasing Hitler was necessary. Prime Minister of Britain, Neville Chamberlain, also believed this too. And he tried to cut a deal with the Germans until he realized that they were rearming anyways. That led to the Stresa Conference, with Britain, France, and Italy. They attempted to rein in Hitler, but the conference broke down when France cozied up to Russia, Italy invaded Ethiopia, and it ended with Britain cutting a lenient deal that tripled the German navy and allowed further rearmament. After seeing the weakness of the Allies, Hitler marched an army of 30,000 into the Rhineland, to no opposition. Britain felt overextended, especially with all of their colonial obligations, and they were not ready for war. France, too, was also not ready for war because they were very unstable politically. They had fascist sympathizers on one side, and on the other side, the Popular Front, who were communist. The next year, and it's also important to mention that if the Allies chose to stop Hitler from marching into the Rhineland, the Germans would have retreated. They had orders to run away if any Allies showed up. But that leads to the next year, the Spanish Civil War, among the USSR-supported Republicans and the fascist-supported nationalists. The nationalists ended up winning, mainly because the Allies signed a neutrality agreement to not support either side, to not antagonize Germany. But the fascists, Italy and Germany, chose to ignore this and supported the nationalist cause anyways. Russia supported the Republicans, who were kind of a mix of anarchists, communists, and leftists. But the nationalists still won, and a big important event is the bombing of Guernica by the Germans. This is a Pablo Picasso painting that was kind of inspired by it. It's called Guernica too. Then the next year, Germany invaded and tried to annex Austria. A similar situation to the rearmament and the rearmament of the Rhineland happened here. France was too unstable, and Britain didn't want to invade and provoke Germany, so they ended up just giving him Austria. It is kind of important to mention that Austria had some German sympathizers. It wasn't as unpopular as future invasions, but it still was no bueno with the Allies. They were very angry about it. Then the next year, Germany wanted the Sudetenland, which is part of Czechoslovakia, and the Allies just gave it to them because, again, Britain, this is a reoccurring story. Britain didn't want to mess up their colonies. They wanted to protect their colonies, and they felt like they didn't have the resources for a full-blown invasion, and France was still unstable politically, not ready for war. Even though France had an alliance with Czechoslovakia that was supposed to guarantee their independence, but they just ignored that and gave them Czechoslovakia, or part of it, the Sudetenland, the German part. But then all of their Czechoslovakia's defenses were in the Sudetenland, so Germany just invaded the rest of Czechoslovakia, and the Allies did nothing about it because they felt like they couldn't. Then the next year, the same thing happened with Czechoslovakia, Austria, and the Rhineland with Poland. They started to kind of have an early debate over Poland between France, Britain, and the USSR. France and Britain agreed to defend Poland from Germany, and they tried courting the Soviets into an alliance to protect Poland. But the alliance fell through after the Allies, Britain and France, thought that Russia was too weak for a degrading alliance, and they also didn't think that Russia should be allowed essentially to invade Poland, even if Poland became fascist. And then that it broke down again when they realized that Poland had the possibility of allying with Germany against Russia. All of that antagonizing of the Russians led to them signing a similar agreement to the Italians, and they decided to partition Poland in the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact, which led to the start of World War II. At the start, they invaded Denmark and Norway for their iron and their coal, and the Allies botched the defense of Norway. Germany blitzed through France and Belgium while bombing London. The Americans stayed neutral, but they still shipped supplies to Britain. So that kind of wraps up the whole thing. But the policy of appeasement, even if it was logical for the time, it did pretty directly lead to World War II. It let Germany rise in power legally and without much war. And it got rid of a lot of the countries that could ally against Germany, like Czechoslovakia, Poland, and like Hungary too. And it also allowed for the alienation of the Soviets and the Italians too. All three of them weren't really too keen on Hitler. They were kind of freaked out by him. But the Allies' just kind of stupidity led to them being either neutral with Hitler or allying with him. And at the time, it would be harder to see because the people really didn't want a repeat of the First World War. They didn't want another major war. So they were willing to do anything to stop it. But them trying to stop the war debatably led to the war. It's kind of a messed up situation all around. But that's it.